All right, so this video is going to be about protists. We can find protists all throughout pond water. They have been known as a kingdom previously. They are a group of primarily unicellular eukaryotes with advances in systematics. They are no longer going to be classified as a kingdom when we look at them based on their evolutionary history. They're a polyphyletic group. They have multiple common ancestors. So we're not going to see them broken down into a separate kingdom. They're going to be part of the eukarya domain. Some general characteristics about protists. We do see the organelles in the eukaryotic cells that we do not see in the prokaryotic cells. They are by far the most diverse, both in terms of their physical structure, in terms of how they function, and in terms of their nutritional needs. We have Photoautotrophs, so they've got to have chloroplasts. We've got Heterotrophs, which take in their organic molecules, and then we have Mixotrophs that combine the two. Again, we do have unicellular protists. We also have multicellular protists, and we have unicellular protists that join up and form colonies. And we have different forms of reproduction. We have both asexual and sexual. Why are protists so diverse? We've talked about endosymbiosis before, where a unicellular organism engulfs. We've talked about how that's why we think mitochondria and chloroplasts have the double membrane. And so once they're taken in, they become an endosymbiont and then an organelle. How we got mitochondria, how we got the chloroplast, and potentially how we got plastids through endosymbiosis of a photosynthetic cyanobacterium. And that led to the red and green algae because they've got similar DNA. And then it's thought that when the eukaryotes started to form, they went through symbiosis a second time and were ingested by a heterotrophic eukaryote. So all sorts of endosymbiosis occurring with our protists. Okay, so there's just some examples of that if you would like to look at that further. Okay, so rather than focusing as much on kingdoms, we're going to look at supergroups within the eukarya domain. There's still going to be the plant kingdom. There's still going to be the fungi kingdom. There's still going to be the Animalia kingdom. But with the eukaryote groups, this is just based on what we know as of now. And again, because they are based on data, if additional data comes up, these relationships might be adjusted accordingly. So the hypothesis that we're going to be exploring is looking at these 5 supergroups. And you can kind of see there the Excavata, the Chromalveolata, the Rhizaria, the Archaeoplastida, and the Unicellular. I want you to notice in the Archaeoplastida, you see the land plants, and we'll spend a couple chapters on them a little bit. And then under the Unicellular, we see the fungi. We'll have a chapter on them once we get through plants, and then we'll have a few chapters on animals. Okay, and those are just examples to the left and right of different protists that make up these 5, help to make up these 5 supergroups within the eukarya domain. So the first one we're going to talk about are the Excavates. So these are protists that have mitochondria that have been modified, and they have flagella that are unique. So this clade, which consists of the Parabasalids, the Diplomonads, and the Euglenozoans, is defined in part by their cytoskeleton. They'll have some of them have a feeding group, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And you're going to see throughout that some of these are more controversial. Again, it's a hypothesis. Additional data may cause adjustments in this setup. So the first one we're going to talk about, lack plastids. Their mitochondria is modified, and they tend to live in environments without oxygen. So the diplomads have mitosomes instead of mitochondria, and they get lots of flagella. They are often known as being parasitic. And then the parabasalids, They have hydrogenosomes rather than mitochondria that get them some anaerobic energy. And this is the protist that is most likely to cause yeast infections, Trichomonas vaginalis, in human females. You've probably heard of Euglenozoans before, euglenas. These are heterotrophs that are predatory, so they have no problems taking care of something to get the energy they need. Photosynthetic autotrophs, and then they can also be parasitic. So they can live off of that organism. They tend to have a spiral or crystalline rod that helps to make up their flagella. And there are two major groups of these, the kinetoplastids and the euglenods. The kinetoplastids do have a mitochondrion, and then the DNA that surrounds that is called a kinetoplast. They are found in freshwater, marine, and terrestrial ecosystems. Trypanosoma, you may have heard of before. That's known as the sleeping sickness. So this protist is the source of that. And they switch their surface proteins so that the immune system can't tackle them. So that makes it a lot harder to get rid of them. The euglenas have one or two flagellas. They can be both autotrophic and heterotrophic. And so there's just an example of one of those. Those are often found in pond water. All right. The chromalveolates, our next one, are thought to have developed in part by secondary symbiosis. That clade is thought to be monophyletic. And the endosymbiont in this particular clade is the red algae. And we're going to talk about two groups of those, the alveolates and the straminopiles. All right, so you can see there's different categories or different sets of organisms within the alveolates and within the straminopiles. So the alveolus, members of that particular clade, have membrane-bound sacs, alveoli, like we see in our lungs, just under the plasma membrane. You can see that in the picture. What they are used for is not known at this time. And then you've got the examples we talked about previously. The dinoflagellates have a couple of flagella, and they have cellulose plates that are surrounding the cells. They are found in marine and freshwater phytoplankton. Again, much diversity in terms of their nutrition and energy needs, the aquatic phototrophs, mixotrophs, heterotrophs, and they are the source of red tides when those occur in aquatic environments. Apicomplexans are animal parasites, and because those can be moved on into humans, they can cause some serious human diseases. Most prevalent one that people know about is malaria. They spread as sporozoites. And you need both the mosquitoes and the humans to be able to get that malaria cycle to be completed. And so this is an example of what that protist is having to do to go through its life cycle, both meiosis and fertilization. And this is part of why when I have gone to Africa, we have to take medicine before we go, and we have to take medicine when we get back to make sure that we really, if any mosquitoes have bit us and that parasite has gotten into our bodies, that we really have done everything we can to kill it off. Okay. Ciliates use the cilia to help move. They can have both large and small micronuclei. They get their variation from conjugation. We talked about that a little bit with bacteria, how they transfer pieces of DNA from adjacent species. And in general, though, just to reproduce, they go through asexual reproduction. They reproduce by binary fission. So there's an example of a ciliate. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on these life cycles because you're going to see there's a bunch of them in here. They're there for you as a reference, but that's not something that we're going to make a super big deal about in this chapter or in this unit in general. The straminopiles are phototrophs. They also have some clades that are heterotrophic. Have hairy flagellums that are paired with smooth flagellums, and you've got some algae there, oomycetes, and diatoms. You may have heard of diatomaceous earth before. That is in part from these diatoms, their walls. Unicellular algae that's got hydrated silica helping to make up their glass-like wall. They can reproduce both sexually and asexually. And again, they're found in a lot of phytoplankton. And once they have bloomed in their environment, they will fall to the ocean floor, and that helps to remove the carbon dioxide to get it down. Golden algae. They get their color from their carotenoids, the yellow and brown carotenoids. They are biflagellated, and they tend to be found on one end of the species or the organism. Photosynthetic and mixotrophic, unicellular, and can be colonial. Brown algae, these are the ones you're probably more familiar with, the largest, most complex. Most are marine, they're multicellular seaweeds. Kelps are found in deeper parts of the ocean, and then it's going there showing you about the physical structure of the brown algae. They don't have roots and stems, which is why they're not considered to be a plant. And talks about how that body is called a thallus, and the holdfast helps to anchor it in place, along with the stipe, which supports what looks like a leaf, but are actually called blades. We spent a little bit of time talking about alternation of generations when we first talked about meiosis. Again, I'm not going to make a big emphasis on these life cycles. It's just basically how they are able to go through meiosis and fertilization. In this case, they're alternating the multicellular haploid and diploid forms. When they are heteromorphic generations, they tend to physically look different, while isomorphic generations tend to look more similar to one another. All right, so there's just an example. Oomycetes, water molds, white rust, downy mildews. They were thought to be fungi based on their physical appearance, but have now been classified in more of the protist arena. They are decomposers or parasites. They have hyphae, filaments that help to take up the nutrition that they need. And they can have some pretty significant impact on things like potato blight, which is caused by Phytophthora infestans. Gross. Okay. Rhizarians are considered to be a monophyletic clade. Amoebas would fall in this category, but not as amoebas move and feed by pseudopodia. Amoebas can fall into other categories as well, but they are some members of this clade, and we see that the radiolarans, the forams, and the cercozoans are all members of this particular group. Radiolarans, you can kind of see from their picture why they'd be called that. They are marine protists that are fused into a single piece made in part of silica. Their pseudopodia help to take in nutritional needs through phagocytosis, and the pseudopodia radiate from that central body. Pretty wild. Forams, foraminiferans. They are named for multi-chambered cells called test. Their pseudopodia extend through these pores. And that's how we've been able to kind of look at their fossil record, is because of these forams. And a lot of them have endosymbiotic algae helping to make them up. The cercozoans. This is where the amoebas and the flagellated protists with the thread-like pseudopodia are most likely to be found. Again, they're found in marine water, they're found in fresh water, they're also found in soil ecosystems. They are heterotrophic and can be parasitic and can act as predators. Polynella chromatophora is an autotroph that got its structure from a different cyanobacterium than the plastids of other eukaryotics that are photosynthetic. So pretty wild, and that's just an example of what it looks like down there. Red algae and green algae, these are the ones that are closest to our land plants. So it says, over 1 billion years ago, a heterotrophic protist got an endosymbiont that was made from cyanobacteria. And the descendants of this protist are how we got red algae and green algae. And land plants came from the green algae. Archaeplastida is this supergroup. Again, we're going to focus more on land plants in later chapters. This chapter, we're just focusing on the protist. So we're going to look at red algae, green algae, and then the two divisions of green algae, the chlorophytes and the charophytes, or charophytes. Who the heck knows? Red algae, they're reddish because of an accessory pigment, says phycoerythrin. I want you to remember that erythrocytes are your red blood cells, so that's where that red is coming from. And it masks the green color that we would see normally with chlorophyll. And the color will vary depending on what level of water they're in. They tend to be multicellular. Seaweeds would fall into this category, and they are in the tropics the most abundant large algae you're going to find in the coast. Green algae, paraphyletic group. So we're not considering all of the species that came from that common ancestor. They are known for their green chloroplast. Again, plants we're going to keep separate. The chlorophytes and the charophyceans. The charophytes are most closely related to the land plants. The chlorophytes tend to live in fresh water. They can live in marine water. They can live in damp soil, or they can live in snow. So they can live all over the place. They form colonies from individual cells, and then they can actually form multicellular species through division and differentiation. Their nuclei will divide. They don't have to go through the cytoplasmic division as well, so they don't have to go through cytokinesis. And they have pretty complex life cycles, both the sexual and asexual stages. And so there's some examples of what they are doing when they reproduce and some pictures to show you representations of them. The uniconts, again, will be protist, but they will also contain your fungi and animals. We're going to focus on the other amoebozoans and the protists that are related to animal and fungi, the opisthocons. We don't know necessarily when these showed up in comparison to the eukaryotes or the other eukaryotes that we've discussed so far. Okay, so we're going to talk about amoebozoans, the nuclearids, and the choanoflagellates in this particular section. Amoebozoans, amoeba that have lobar tube-shaped pseudopodia as opposed to the thread-like ones we just talked about previously. Examples include slime molds, gymnomoebas, and entomoebas. Entomoeba histolytica is the source of dysentery, which is what you tend to have to watch out for if you get traveler's diarrhea. So they're parasites of vertebrates and invertebrates. The gymnomoebas are found in soil, freshwater, and marine environments. It's got some other characteristics there for you. Plasmodial slime molds tend to be brightly pigmented. They can form a mass that's called a plasmodium, but that is not the malaria plasmodium. Gotta love multiple uses for the same really strange word. They aren't multicellular. They contain lots of diploid nuclei, and they extend their pseudopodia through decomposing material to take in food. Yay. Okay, so there's some examples of plasmodial slime molds. Yeah, there we go. Cellular slime molds. They form multicellular aggregates where the cells are separated by their membranes. They can join together to make a fruiting body, but they feed individually. Dictyostelium discoideum is a model scientists have used to study multicellular organisms. So there's its life cycle. And again, here are the opisthocons. Protists play key roles in ecological communities. Again, we're going to spend more time with ecology in our last unit. They can be found in all sorts of aquatic environments. They can function as symbionts or they can function as producers. When they are symbiotic, they can benefit their host. So here's an example where dinoflagellates are nourishing coral polyps, and wood-digesting protists can digest cellulose. They can be parasitic. We've talked about malaria with Plasmodium. Pfisteria shumway is a dinoflagellate that can kill fish. And then we didn't talk about this one, sorry. Phytophthora ramorum can cause sudden oak death. So we can have protists that are helpful and we can have protists that are harmful. We can also have protists that are photosynthetic. They get their energy from the sun, therefore they're acting as producers. And if they are provided with additional sources of nutrition, they can blow up in terms of becoming overpopulated. What we have seen is as the sea surface temperature has increased, that has caused their production to decrease, which is an issue with that's associated with global warming. And if you don't have producers, that's the starting point of your food chain, so that can cause lots of other issues as you move up. Okay, and I believe that is the end of chapter 28. And then I've got this summary here at the end for you to take a look at as a reference.